The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Return the Jewels. Also, there's explicit language. Hey everyone, welcome to the 12th episode of Return the Jewels. This is a good one, but a couple of things up top. Well, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, please excuse this insane sunlight I have going on. Look at this. But aside from that, we did a little renovating to the website, and now the merch store should be more readily available. Also, redesigned all the merch, so it's kind of cool and streetwear-ish, like New York streetwear. Got a few entertainers wearing it and stuff like that. It's cool. They're cool designs, and it's also about decolonization. You'll like it. Check it out. ReturnTheJewels.com. Um, but yeah, we did that. Social media, we're working on. We're still working on. Please bear with us. Thank you for your patience with us. I gotta figure out like posting discipline, and I'm trying to learn it and be organic with it. But there's all that. But that being said, we got a really good episode today. My good friend Kunal Arora, formerly known as Casey Arora, because that's his stage name. He probably still may be known some places as Casey Aurora, but he was mostly formerly known as Casey Aurora, and he's going by his name Kunal. But we talk about that. He's a comedian, an actor, a good comedian, a good actor, and Indian guy. Grew up in Queens, our generation. So you could tell by the archaic language we use. The interview itself was a good one. Fani couldn't be there because he was a little under the weather, but he watched the interview later and he said it was like ping pong. And yeah, Fani said it was like ping pong. Um, sorry. Uh, but the interview is good. We talked about appropriation, which is seems like it's the thing we always talk about, and representation in media, narrative crafting, religious iconography, because that deals with the appropriation segment we had, which was about K-pop. K-pop, pop for popular, because that's K-pop. But yeah, um, good interview. Kunal Aurora. You can find him at alldaykca.com or alldaykca or at alldaykca. Uh, but he's got an album out called Draw 4. He released it, I think, right at the beginning of quarantine. It's really good. Um, he's a very unique comedian in that he's not fully a contrarian, but he kind of operates like a contrarian. So the angles that he comes across, you don't necessarily expect him to be delivering those or to take those angles. So it's always refreshing. You'll be able to tell if you listen to the album. Available on available on all audio platforms. Also check out his YouTube to see what he's cooking up. Another thing, he just started a new game show for second quarantine, which is pretty great. It's actually very engaging. He's figuring out all the kinks and all that right now and the bugs, but it is worth subscribing to now because it's a pretty good angle. It's a pretty good gimmick, and it's very engaging. It's called Home Invaders, and you right now you can find it on his social media or YouTube, but he is he's working on it, and so the distribution of it will be adjusted. But that being said, it was a very good interview, like ping pong, and enjoy. So, hi everyone. Today we have Casey Aurora or Kunal Aurora. Am I saying it right? First of
I think you are.
all, okay. I think I am too, because if this was like third grade and someone was like, "Oh, that's Q now," and I'd be like, "No, it's Kunal."
Right.
Having not even probably never having even known another Kunal. I bring that up because I don't know if we had this conversation before. So Casey is the stage name,
Was.
was the stage name
Hmm.
to is until
I don't know. I think like maybe a few months ago.
okay. So how long? How long did you use KC?
Man, I've been doing comedy for 5 years. So no, I'm sorry, 10 years. I was like, geez, wait a
Yeah, I was
minute.
like 5 years. That doesn't that
That
doesn't.
doesn't sound right. So 10 or maybe 11 now.
Well,
11 years.
I feel like the whole world lost the last 5 years anyway, so it's okay.
Right. So it was KC for like 5 years.
Okay.
And it's, part of me, I'm going to look back at it as growth
Yeah.
because I'm not going to look at it as regrets, nor should I.
I agree. Like, and there's also like there's a technical, pragmatic aspect, right?
Mhm.
Trading in a stage name, KC. Okay, first of all, he's ethnically ambiguous because other than doing a Google search for the last name Aurora, I can't figure out what ethnicity he is, so I may book him,
Mhm.
or it probably helps and stuff, or maybe you think that early on in your career,
Mhm.
and then I guess now, just a few months ago, switching to Kunal, being known as Kunal, like your name, and do you know what caught like? Well, obviously but
Sure.
like what was the thought process going into that? I'm sure it took an epiphany of some sort.
I don't think it was, I think it's just growth.
Okay,
We often call, I think we often call, like, we try to glamorize growth as epiphanies.
hmm,
So to
okay,
me, I guess if you're not growing much, then every thought that moves you forward is an epiphany. So, but if you're constantly growing, which I think that you should, then it's just growth.
so we are holding value in epiphany as something that's radical rather than a catalyst of incrementalism, which maybe we just have sustained and frequent and multiple epiphanies, and that's growth in itself, versus what's the alternative to growth?
Stagnation.
Stagnation, not regression.
I mean, I guess that would be the true alternative would be regression. I don't know how many people regress
Well,
in
I
terms
feel
of
like,
growing.
it could be the same kind of thing where it's like the alternative, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy.
Right. Right. So I think that, yeah, with growth, it's not regression, it's staying the same. You don't, I don't think you go further. Nobody ungrows. You don't
It's true.
lose the ability to read, which would be impressive if that was the case. Like, man, I haven't read a book in a year and a half. I don't know how to anymore.
I mean, unless you go blind and have to learn Braille.
Sure, sure. Then I guess at that point you're now illiterate again, and that has got to be, that's truly an interesting crossroad to reach, where you lose your sight and you got to make that hard decision if you want to learn how to read again.
What if you lost your sight as an adult? Would you be immediately regretful of how many books you didn't read?
No,
How
because
much?
there's Braille.
Because there's Braille, I guess, and there's
Right,
audiobooks. What
right.
about how much TV you didn't watch?
I would regret how much TV I watched.
How much TV you watched?
Absolutely, I watched way too much as a kid. I should have maybe filled my mind with a lot of other things.
Why? Okay, I watched a lot of TV as a kid, and I
Sure,
know like I've heard about this, and I
but
think
that's only when
different.
I'm losing my vision. I feel fine with it now. I'm just saying, if I lost my vision, I would probably regret the amount of TV I watched.
Okay, so the negative for watching so much TV growing up is vision based. Are there any other pejorative values to assign to watching a bunch of TV growing up in your mind?
I don't know if it didn't give me the opportunity. Well, maybe that's just life. Life didn't give me the opportunity to learn a bunch of skills. I don't
Okay.
have any other skills. I'm a I know a little bit of everything, I think.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Sometimes nothing, but it's that. If I watched less TV, maybe I would have learned more.
Do you not? Do you feel like okay? Now I watched a lot of TV growing up, and I know we've heard about this, but like parents, South Asian parents, are very like you know they instill in you that this is a waste of time, or that the opportunity cost of watching TV it takes away from your ability to succeed and whatever. But do you feel like there is an inherent value in having watched that much TV, like in terms of what you do now? You craft narratives, you're a stand-up, you're a storyteller,
Hmm.
you put out album recently.
Hmm.
You're doing the thing, right? You're making
Right.
sketches. You're doing all of this, right? For as much as you're downplaying right now in this conversation, which is generally your mo and my mo as well, so which is why I understand it. But in case people are wondering, like for that, do you see the value in having watched a lot of TV in terms of how you can frame thoughts, how you can articulate heavy ideas and conceptualize them for audiences, for the layperson to the most sophisticated person?
I guess I should start a little further back with what you're saying.
Okay,
My family never told me that watching TV was a waste of time.
really?
No, there was parental control was limited in the house.
What do you
So
mean?
it's not like I would come home from school. My parents weren't home; they're at work, so they wouldn't come back till at earliest 5. So now I've got like 2, 3 hours to myself.
Right.
Then my parents bought a grocery store, so my dad would be back around 7, and my mom would be back around 9:30. And at that point, they're exhausted. They've got their own things they need to take care of. So parental supervision during developmental years weren't, it just didn't exist. So I didn't have anyone sitting there trying to correct my television consumption.
Yeah. Well,
Nobody is telling me those things. So, but it did have a benefit because of what I do now. Like a, I wrote a TV pilot in 4 days.
wow.
Yeah. And it was good. It was really good. And that's not me, patting myself on the back. That's other people who said it to me. Other people, TV execs, and their major issue was that, listen, I like this concept. I think it's interesting and I like your take on it. However, you're not famous. So we can't make it. And my response was, well, I can't get that way unless you decide to take that chance on me. And they're like, yeah, I know. Isn't that everyone else's feeling? And I was like, yeah, I get it.
I think yeah, therein lies the rub. What is it that network executives and all this stuff like? Okay, let me reel back for a second. All the effort and headache and time and work that goes into the essential premise that I have to pitch my idea or that my idea needs to get material support from an established network with an established platform. Like, yeah, like we can't deny the reach of networks. We can't deny their ability to produce the years of experience, all this stuff. But like all the focus and all of that going into having to pitch something that's palatable and can get someone more famous than you so that you can be replaced, like how much of that eats at you versus the thought of, and they don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive, but like building your own show, which you
Mhm.
have, we'll talk about, but
Right.
like building your own show, building your own brand, trying to, or I guess organically is the superlative way to say, you know by being broke, but like getting off your own show and brand? Do you think it's completely impossible without having to chase that incredible material support of networks?
I think a lot of people do this. They go for the network.
Yeah.
And if the network says no, then they have a crossword. crossroad to kind of take. Do I make my own shit, or do I just keep knocking on some other doors and figure it out from there? Or I guess the other option is, uh, do I just quit entirely? Right? You could always do that. But I think that people try that option. They want to know if, like, oh, we'll put you on TV. We think you're worth putting on TV.
Right.
And so they'll put you on. And that's great. That's a fantastic place to be. I don't knock anybody for saying, listen, you're not famous. We can't make this. I'm not. I was like, okay, that makes sense. You have a job to do, and your
Right.
job is to take, you're betting on something, and you can bet on something and think this is a really good product, but you also have to take into consideration what's on the table, right? So if you've got, I don't know, ever play blackjack? It's a pretty simple game. Got to get to 21. If you got a 10 on the table, man, that's a good place to start. But if you've got like a, I don't know, a 6, it's not necessarily a good place to be. So that's how they see me. And don't get me wrong, you can change your perceptions to how people view you. You can be a 10 in some people's eyes, and you can be a 6 in others. And that's right. That's just how life is. So I don't knock people for seeing me that way. It just, to me, it just means, all right, well, let's go another direction. And to me, another direction is to create my own stuff, which a lot of people have done before.
Do you think there's a cycle of like, or maybe not a cycle, more like a conflict between you as an entrepreneur, a pioneer, somebody who's, literally creating a living from his mind, right? Do you think that there's a conflict between the ego that you have to fight for and create for yourself, like in terms of having to sell your own product, and because selling you and, not underselling yourself in that case, do you think there's a conflict between that and then, getting criticism from networks or whatever and having to just like step back and look at all the pragmatic thoughts that go into the decision making, right? As opposed to being like, no, fuck that, dude. I'm the shit. I should be on TV.
I don't, I never looked at it where I was just like, did I have that thought of, oh, I should be on TV? Yeah, of course, I have those thoughts often.
Right.
But man, until I can convince someone to do that, don't think I don't try. I
Right.
certainly still try. But everybody has been, this is a business of being told no constantly. So you have to kind of decide what you want to do next.
Right.
You want to just keep going, I deserve to be on TV, and you keep trying, and that's all you're doing, man, that's your choice. I don't, that's not what I want to do. That would just bore me for too long. I don't know how people, I've always been impressed with actors who just kind of like, they keep auditioning for these roles, and they want to
Yeah.
be an actor, and that's all they want to do, and they just keep knocking on these doors, and they do these auditions. You go into these rooms, you read the part, they say thank you, you leave, you have no fucking clue what the hell just happened, and then you're supposed to wait for some phone call, and somebody's gonna be like, yeah, we want you to be this person or that character or whatever. And that's somehow, people do that. People have done that for so long, and that's impressive because I can't do that. Just that. I go on auditions, I send in tapes all the time,
Right.
but that's not enough for me. I need something more. And I
Right.
feel when you're a comedian, there's that feeling to do something more. So
Did you what'd you do first? A set or an audition?
set. Yeah.
And how long before the first audition? The first set.
Hmm. I think maybe 2 years, maybe,
Okay.
right? Maybe a year. They sort of become, they start to go hand in hand,
Yeah.
like, or they're it's one hand that does, it's not that far behind from the other, where they come in and people see you and they're like, hey, I'd like you to read for this role. You're funny on stage. I would like you to see if you're funny in this role on camera. So it becomes natural. I don't know of a comedian who's never read for a role before. like that's been doing it. If you're a comedian and you've been doing it for 5 years and you've never auditioned for anything, that's almost impressive to be like, I don't do auditions. Fuck that noise. That's impressive to me.
Now, is that okay? It's impressive, yes, because you're stalling an inevitability.
Hmm.
But in terms of how it's perceived, is it something you praise or something you condemn in that it's like, oh, that's artistic integrity or that's laziness? That you are disappointing me by not being an enterprising individual in your position.
I can't expect people to live up to the standards that I create for myself.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going to condemn somebody for their decisions. That's their choice.
How long did it take for you to realize that?
I don't know. I
Is
don't know.
that when you change your name to Casey or Kunal?
Uh, there's still a lot of flyers with KC on it. There's a lot of people that
Yep.
still call me that, but it nothing. I mean, it's all part of the growth, right? It's
Right.
all. Maybe that was an epiphany.
I mean, I really think incrementalism in your personal growth happens with frequent epiphanies. I was thinking the other day about, okay, so what are nostalgic triggers, right? The most intense one is smell, then there's sight,
Mhm.
taste, whatever. So I think like for the last maybe 15, 16 years or so, I've been kind of like, I was in the academic world or whatever then, but like you you think about moments because you go through a lot of crap or a lot of crap. You go through a lot of shit with your schedule and being overworked and undervalued, blah blah blah. And so to get through it, you cope like with moments or whatever, music, something, different experiences. And so I started thinking like, okay, I'm logging this as data because this is going to be a moment for nostalgia later, right? Because I know that like, oh, I'm feeling like shit now and feeling very like very shitty. But I know in like a couple of years, like two things. In a couple of years, I'm gonna look back with rose tinted glasses on this. So I gotta preserve this moment and think back. It's like, okay, that is a moment of nostalgia. Let me feel like how I felt then. So let me code in a few different like songs and foods and whatever during this time so that I can go back to the access this period through those nostalgic triggers. And then like I think about that, or I was thinking about that the other day because that's like that's one of those things. It's like, okay, if I'm thinking about personal growth, I gotta remember the positioning of where I was before because if I'm just moving the needle forward, I need landmarks.
Mhm.
So that whole rant or whatever that just was,
Right.
all being there to have being said,
Yeah.
I really do think epiphanies are what move growth forward. And I think we have thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands of them during our lifetime.
Yeah, I just hold an epiphany as like a massive realization. So
Yep.
that to me, and it's just, but if there's, but I mean, I guess I don't know the exact meaning of an epiphany. To me, it just means a big realization. So if you're
Yeah.
having a bunch of big realizations, that's fantastic. I just think it's just all growth. And I don't have massive realizations to me don't seem too big.
Right.
They just they're especially with the kind of growth that I'm trying to accomplish here.
Because I feel like these massive realizations are always knocking at our door,
Mhm.
but we personally respond with fight or flight, and then we judge people with how they responded to different opportunities or realizations, right? Because it's like just like how we play fantasy football, we like to play virtual vicarious, everybody in our network. If I was in their position, why don't they realize this? Or why don't they, so
Hmm.
that kind of thing, having those realizations, or like they're always there, but it's like we will criticize people for flight or denial of a realization that may be inevitable or may be imminent that we see, as a third party observer.
That's a complicated thing because to tell somebody about that realization that you see about them,
Right.
that requires an intimate connection. One where you feel comfortable telling them that, and you feel comfortable that they're going to receive it in a way that can't be harmful to you. So that requires sort of a connection that you have with that person. And I think about people who have things in them when you, like, for example, if you talk to somebody, I'll speak to a comedian who hasn't blown up per se. And I'm wondering, this person's so funny. Why hasn't their career taken off?
Right.
And then I'll speak to them, and then I'll get a realization as to what that answer is. Maybe it's they're unreliable. Maybe they're too this way or that way. They've got glaring blind spots that they can't seem to see. Once again, it's not my job to
Right.
make them aware of those things. Now, if I have a close connection with them, then I'll take that up because it's an intimate thing to reveal a blind spot to a person, because
Yeah.
it's not like a truck missing the side of a car. These are human beings and their emotions, which is a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
So you sideswipe a car if you're a truck, all right, fine, no big deal. But when you point out a massive gap in someone's life because something they can't see, there's going to be a big consequence to it. So you better be careful when you when you make that realization for somebody.
Yeah. People hold on to that thing for years. And
Right.
it's like, you know, you could say something to someone, but the best time to say it would be probably 2 years from now.
Probably, but
Right.
nobody, I don't think that people look
Right,
at it.
right. It has to be an intimate relationship, and it has
Right.
to be one that you're committed to. We're not talking about romantic relationships, or
No.
not necessarily, but like it has to be a relationship you're committed to doing work on and have a long term view of. Because
Right.
it's just like, okay, this is just a slight because I see that this is how they approach problem solving, or this is what goes into their decision calculus, and I know that, and I can't challenge that until I get an indication that they're receptive to me challenging that,
Right.
because it is a responsibility I have to take on. And then I have to also wonder, you know, what is it about me that wants to take on this responsibility or has to take on this responsibility, or what is the difference? You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's not an easy thing to kind of think about or pursue. So I'm grateful for the close relationships that I have because they're able to point out those things that I miss, and I want more of those. I love that kind of stuff. I love when somebody's like, "You missed this," or "You should do that," or "This is something that you're not looking at it this way." Those things to me are great,
same.
and when somebody points those out to me, I love it.
Bro, if I fuck with you, I want you to fuck my mind up all
Right,
the time.
right.
You
And
know?
it's like people, they don't. There's only it's difficult, but at the same time, like the amount of benefit you're going to get from this is immense. Like to broaden your field of view, that shit's forever, man. You can't put that away until you have it for life. And I'm grateful for those people in my life that have given me that have broadened my view. Sometimes I feel like I've got the vision of a mouse where it's piss poor.
Right.
And then sometimes I feel like a fucking eagle, and it is great.
The fool on
So,
the hill.
not even that, but just I can see through things so much clearer. So much distance to what I'm getting. Not even position. It's just about actual eyesight.
And you
And
think those are momentary, or they stick with you? They stick with you?
I think they're like binoculars.
Mm.
The focus comes and goes depending on how you're supposed to be looking at something, and it changes.
Hence, I guess maybe that's what the epiphany is. But what what I think, okay, having those relationships that you're willing to commit to, right? What is the drive that pushes you to be around people or be around certain people or people you admire, right? And one big thing on this podcast we talk about is like being first generation, or
Mhm.
and growing up, right, watching a lot of TV, you see the lack of representation of people that look like you or your cousins. And
Right.
that's not necessarily, sure, it can be a debated issue, whatever. But like, that's what your experience generally is, and that's the similarity like you and I have, even though we are complete strangers up until a few years ago, right?
Mhm.
So like, we still share that similarity. I can assume you have these life experiences because I can see your face, you know
Right.
and so I find people now in my life, the people I'm around, I admire them. I look at work ethic, and I look at like what they're doing. And the thing that drives it is I had this complete lack of representation growing up in Mississippi, all that stuff. You have a lack of representation. You you kind of think of America as monolithic. By that I mean white. Um, and then you then when you get older or get into these different, or try to find your own circles, right? You look for people that look like you or whatever. Then maybe there's like a tiny bit of tribalism in there, but seeking representation, I think, is one of those main drives that a lot of people that look like us have. And I don't know if I'm like right in assuming that, but I assume that's like something that made you want to be a comedian, because you're just like, well, I need to fill a role that I never see.
I never thought about that. I never thought about.
Really?
No, I don't. Fuck the kids. That's the way that I.
For
That's
real?
my thought process is like I'm going to be the representation of these kids. To me, that's wildly egotistical for you to.
For real?
Yeah, for someone to sit there and be like, I'm going to be the person
Yeah.
that these people look up to, and fine. If you want to be that, go for it. But I never looked at being a comedian as I'm going to be the Indian they need. Like, who the fuck am I? Batman? The Batman of Indians? No, man. I looked at it. Am
The
I?
Batman of Indians is Bengali.
I was I looked at it like, all right, I want to do comedy. I was funny. Let me be funny. That's what it is. And to be a representation to somebody is becoming a thought that I'm thinking about now
Okay.
to a degree. And it doesn't, for me, man, I'm not thinking about that little Indian kid in Virginia.
Right.
I'm thinking about my Verizon bill. So that
Right.
depends what takes more of a precedent in your mind. And my bills take more of a precedent right now.
Right.
But I do think about that kid,
So
that
like
idea.
you would not, without hesitation, you would play that cab driver in a Ryan Reynolds movie.
No, absolutely not. And let me tell
No.
there's a difference there
Okay.
because
I'm talking about like the cab driver they had that was like this dude, American accent
right,
actor, but he had to do an Indian accent for the role, which was never addressed
right,
for any reason.
right. I'll get into all that in terms of I would never take those roles
Right.
because it does look bad for that's the only that's just the stereotypes that Indian people are perpetuated in media is it's sad to be honest. It's either wildly aggressive
Right.
or incredibly meek. And I've never related to any of that. I've never when I lost my virginity, I didn't need to throw a woman through a wall. Like I didn't need to do any of that shit. Like
Right.
I'm just a regular dude who talked to some girls and I can do that. And I can imagine there are plenty of us that do that. But as somebody in this business, I don't pursue those roles because those are the only options that those are the major options that are offered, right? It's either meek character or aggressive, abusive terrorist in some cases, and people become the options that you give them.
Whoa, what do you mean?
Like, if you only give me two options to be seen, then that's how the rest of the world is going to see me. Like, you perpetuate me as a soft, weak man, or you perpetuate me as a fundamentalist terrorist or abusive monster. Those are the only two options I'm given. The rest of the world will see me as those two options.
Okay, so then the impetus to become an alternative to the limited options you have, ego aside, is that egotistical to be like, I need to be the middle ground representation because people need to see, like, people need to see a slacker Indian. People need to
Right.
see someone that's not, someone that doesn't have anger issues, you know, or someone that's not. We talked about last episode. We talked about like the fuckable brown male is
Mhm.
the only way to like overcorrect or correct the systematic emasculation, because it's like we're taken out as a threat, as a sexual threat. We're not a sexual threat. We're an intellectual threat because we can be controlled because we're not a sexual threat. So it's like, you got these the CEO of Google, Indian dude, all these in the tech world everywhere, right? Because they're not, because we don't have a culture, we don't have representation of us or people like us being sexually threatening, then you can do the Johnny Five stuff. You can do all of that stuff, right?
Is it egotistical to provide a well-rounded view of
Right.
people?
No, I don't think so. That's
So
what I'm asking.
yeah, I don't think it is either. I think it's just wanting to, to show that there's more than one angle. Where I mean, I think they look at Indian people as coins.
Or
One,
tokens.
yeah, isn't that? It's kind of interesting. Tokens,
Yeah.
right? One side or the other, right? It's one side or the other. But people are so much more complicated. We're not even diamonds, man. We're marbles. They're from any angle you can look at us, as you can with anybody. So I just want to add another angle.
Right.
That's all.
And like marbles, like in Men in Black, which was probably taken from the Ramayana or whatever, there's
Right.
a universe within us.
Exactly. It always comes back to a good on-screen reference.
That's all I do, dog. Which
That's
is, I mean, I am a very intense by training media consumer from childhood, and
same.
so I can't deny all of that time. Like, it's not 10,000 hours; it's more like 100,000 hours. I can't deny that time being uh, absorbed in like narrative crafting, storytelling, internet comments, all of that stuff. How do people structure jokes, everything? It's like I can't deny being awash in all of that. And now trying to take a step back and really looking at how people frame all of that, I think it gives me an advantage in being able to see how people frame these things.
Right. So I've always wanted to provide a different perspective. And I don't know what necessarily that perspective could be classified as. And that's fine. It doesn't
Right.
really, as long as you just kind of see me as a person who's not those two options.
Well, yeah. Okay. So I'm familiar. I've seen you do stand up. And
Right.
if for anyone watching, Kunal Aurora, what is it? Alldaykca.com. You can watch clips. You can find them on YouTube, whatever. What I've noticed, and so I notice this about comedians, and not just comedians, like internet commenters, right?
Hmm.
um, People like to play contrarian for contrarian's sake, right? And then
Hmm.
just be like, I'm just hypothetical testing ideas. Hey, and I'm just arguing for. And so I see that in a lot of comedians, or a lot of male comedians, really, that just, well, I will be a contrarian here, right? Or they have the thing. It's like I will dig myself in a hole to dig myself out, which in itself, sure, that's a noble pursuit to dig yourself in a hole and dig yourself out, or to try to tiptoe the line of offensiveness or whatever. But being a contrarian for contrarian's sake is inherently empty in itself. And one thing I've noticed about you is you're a contrarian, but it's not empty. Like it's just like it's like here's all my angles that I'm giving are coming from my innate jadedness, right? Because other people, like, I'm not trashing people who like by saying, "Oh, it's PC culture, it's cancel culture," that dumb shit, right?
Right.
I'm just what I'm doing is I'm coming from, yeah, I'm jaded because of this. So I'll be angry about things, but that's, man, I've been angry. Like I can't be that kind of emotional angry anymore.
That
So
sounds
I will just
sounds like a lot of weight to carry to be angry all the time. And I don't. I've never want. I'm happy that you've been able to see that with my comedy. Is like I don't. In terms of being controversial
right,
or contrarian, I've always felt that as much as we dog PC culture, as much as comedians will mock other comedians for saying, or artists in general, will be like, oh, you only want clapter, which is clapping for a good point instead of laughter. I
right.
think on the other side of the curve, there are controversial comedians that say controversial things in lieu of laughter. I call that contraptors. They're no different.
You need to trademark these things ASAP.
They're literally two, they're the same person on other ends of the spectrum. That's
Yeah,
all it is.
it's a horseshoe.
And it's like, how you're going to sit here and dog people for making good points when you're just saying wild shit for the sake of saying wild shit. And it's like, you're the same person. A good comedian toes the line between the two. It's a tightrope walk. That's all it is. Add tension, relieve tension, make a good point, say something that pushes the envelope. You're supposed to do all those things. But
Yeah.
when you lean on one side versus the other and then mock the other side, you're the same person. I watch
Same.
this all the time and I'm not impressed.
So, okay, let me try to crystallize all of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horseshoe, right? Where at both ends people basically meet in the middle, but they're opposite ends. It's more structured like a horseshoe. Uh, but also the thing about PC culture or progressivism is like the two sides you see in response on the ends of the horseshoe, that's the flight. That's the denial, it's the flight. And then the more like in the middle, which is constructive dialogue or whatever, like Hegelian thing, which is like thesis antithesis, that is growth, and that's the things that are PC culture is what pushes the epiphanies, right? You can label it as PC culture, you can label it as progressive politics, whatever, but the thoughts there are what pushes those epiphanies. People either fight it by doing ad hominem attacks, or no, they flight by doing ad hominem attacks, or they fight it by doing internal work.
Right. But nobody wants to do the. I mean, a lot of the work is difficult. It's not that nobody wants to do the work. I think the work is just tough.
Bro, it's hella difficult.
Yeah. So, I think, and also those extreme ends, they just look more appealing.
Yeah.
They always do. Think about the points of a trident.
Right. Right.
Everyone's looking at those points, but what about the handle?
Right, or even the part that connects, that has to have a higher structural integrity than the points, or the whole thing doesn't work.
Exactly.
You know, um, that's a better analogy than the horseshoe,
The
because
trident.
yeah, because there's a middle ground that moves forward,
Hmm.
and then the other kind of.
I wonder if I was inspired by the poster in the background.
So the poster in the background is Lord Shiva,
Right.
and then he's just he's on a rock. I have another photo here of him like in the woods. He's just on his conch shell. He's chilling. I guess in his 40s. That's how I think of myself in my like 40s. Maybe I could retreat into the woods. Like that's part of our whole Hindu thing too. Is like you grow up in the world and you do your middle age and all the stuff in the world, and then as you get older you retreat into the woods and become a stoic and at peace, right? And so I think about myself as like, yo, that's gonna be me in my 40s or so, and that digital or that world, the retreating into the forest is for me is just gonna be purely digital.
I don't
You
think
know?
too far ahead about that. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I mean, I just, especially now, right? We have no idea what the fuck's happening. So
But
where,
I have this I have this right in my room
right?
because this is my religion, this is my culture, whatever. But like, I don't necessarily know much about Shiva, and that makes me feel bad. But like, what's
Why?
worse? Well, I guess I feel bad because I feel like later on in life, I have to become I'm a steward of a new responsibility I never anticipated, right? Being the guy to have to contextualize the information from here, right? Because you see things like appropriation and shit like that, people using iconography and symbols that have that have been very coded through thousands of years with certain religions or cultures, right? And people using them and flipping them. A very most famous example is the Nazis using the swastika. It used to be a Hindu thing, but they like flipped it and took out the dots. But like
You don't have to be that person who sits there and explain that shit. We got the internet for that.
sure, we got the internet for that, but also there's also disinformation and astroturfing on the internet. So it's like really more of a quantity versus quantity as opposed to quality control of the not a control, but a quality filter of what kind of information comes through, right? Like
Right.
I
And you
saw,
be a person who points people in that direction. I think a lot of
right,
those people that are constantly outraged are wanting, I don't get mad at them, right? Because I look at those people like they just want someone to understand their perspective.
right.
And so there's a necessity for it. I don't have the bandwidth to be angry all the time. So, for those who do, great. Also, to me, to be angry all the time seems very privileged. So,
Yo, I've been talking about how being apathetic is very privileged, or that's how I've been feeling a lot lately. But
if you have the time to make videos about how angry you are, if you've got the time to constantly comment on how pissed off you are about, you are a very lucky individual.
yeah,
Because there's somebody out there who's working 12 hours a day. Let me tell you one thing, man. They don't give a fuck about being angry over some dumb shit that you saw online that pissed you off. They don't care.
man, maybe apathy in itself is a horseshoe because it's like there's one apathy where you can't afford to care, right? Like things will make you angry, sure, but you can't afford to be angry. And then there's also an apathy that's like psychopaths that like put kids in cages and whatever, but like, where they just don't care.
Right.
But like, that all being said, right? There's this ongoing thing about appropriation using cultures and whatever, and that just puts people like, okay, we talked about this before, but like I was seeing things online trying to deny, like saying like, oh, yoga is actually a form of Irish calisthenics from a century ago. It's a lie, right? Sure. And the whole thought of that is like, okay, yeah, it doesn't make you angry enough to make a video, but it's just like,
Maybe we stole drinking from the Irish. I don't know.
maybe we
No.
probably did. I mean,
Yes.
we probably did. I
I
mean,
mean, their flag is just ours in a different angle, or vice versa.
yo, but we got the pinwheel.
Oh, so that's it? We made it just that different? We threw a little wheel on there, and that's like, no, you know what? It's now.
No, we invented the wheel, like we invented zero,
Yeah,
a
sure.
wheel.
I don't know, man. I guess. Yeah, I guess it could be. So go on. All right. So
I should turn this into like a conspiracy theorist podcast and be like, yo, the number 7
right.
with a wheel. There are this many spokes. Notice the distance. And yeah, oh man.
Every podcast or show on the internet is only 4 steps away from being a full-blown conspiracy theorist thing. Anyway, it's that fine line. You just don't walk over the edge, man. That's all you gotta do. Just stay on that edge, and you'll be all right.
Every podcast is so susceptible to becoming conspiracy theorist podcasts, and then as soon as they do, they book Candace Owens.
That's it.
That's it.
So go on. So
I say all of this to say, and I know we've talked about this, but we have a segment called
Appropriation or Appreciation.
There's a controversy that's fairly recent. This is K-pop group called Blackpink, and they had this icon, one of our gods, Ganesh, and he's on the floor, and so, anyways,
I don't really.
Here's a clip.
Mm-hmm.
On June 26, 2020, Blackpink made their lengthy-awaited comeback with a pre-release single titled How You Like That. While the MV was launched, Indian Blinks lovers quickly noticed that in Lisa's solo scene, she can be seen in an alley, and the scene then cuts to her being seated on a throne. After the scene closer inspection, Indians saw that while seated at the throne, there was a statue of the Hindu deity Ganesh next to Lisa positioned on the floor. In the Hindu pantheon, Ganesh is one of the maximum crucial deities worshipped. Respected as a remover of a barrier, he symbolizes expertise and is a patron god of the sciences and arts. One of the criticisms leveled at these specific scenes is that Ganesh is placed on the floor. That's visible as immensely disrespectful to the deity.
So you see the statue on the floor, right? And I'm sure like they sell it at like whatever Hot Topic, and it's like decorative. And, but so what are your thoughts on this? Is this appropriation or appreciation, or am I creating a false dichotomy?
Like, what do you mean by a false dichotomy?
Between appropriation and appreciation, essentially suggesting that the two are mutually exclusive.
So you're saying, why can't it be both?
Perhaps, or I'm asking, I mean, essentially, I want your elaborated take on this situation, because I know you did research into it.
Sure. I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, I don't believe in appropriation to a degree. I just
elaborate.
I think that people just, man, if they're going to put Hindu gods in their thing, I don't think they're. Now, if this woman had a Hindu god statue in there and then she started peeing on it, that would be a different story. That's disrespectful. That doesn't, I mean, and now that's just straight up fucked up. But to put a Hindu god in a music video, so what? Cares, man. Are we going to go after anybody who's ever had a Ganesh G statue in and they're not Hindu in their house? We're going to drag these people out. What Joe Rogan has a Hindu Ganesh statue in his studio, and that's great. That's fantastic, man. So more people know about something.
Yeah.
How is that a bad thing?
Well, is it that they know about something, or that they will take however it's presented on its face for that being the like Joe Rogan could easily be like, oh, this is this cool elephant image guy I found, that really what this really actually means is peace and prosperity to the Joe Rogan podcast, right? So like he could totally frame millions of people's minds as like and basically hijack the icon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm sure there'll be the pushback. But like, sure. That being said, what about the thought of, and this is part of the big backlash of the Ganesh statue. And let me just point out, you said Ganesh G.
Yeah.
G is kind of like a sir or form of respect that we have in the language. So implicitly, already. But like instead of saying Ganesh, it's just a subtle like not wanting to be not necessarily sacrilegious, but not disrespectful.
Well, I mean, that's just what I was taught. So I
Right.
don't, I was raised under Hinduism, but I don't believe in it
Same.
now. Yeah, like I just don't. And if people are gonna, whether it's Joe Rogan, whether it's a K-pop music video, they're gonna have a statue of Ganeshji on it, and they're not being disrespectful in any which way. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think it's appropriation. I think it's appreciation. Anything that you take. I mean, could you look at the fact that I'll take Indian food and chop up butter chicken really well, and then I'll throw it on a piece of naan and throw mozzarella on it and be like, it's Indian pizza. Like, if you want to get angry at me about it,
Yeah, but if you're
fine.
the one selling it,
Yeah, but
then it's different, right?
Could
Or no?
Italians be upset at me about that? I'm sure they could, but
Not if you're the one selling it. It's like, hey, my name is Kunal, not KC, and I'm selling Indian pizza.
yeah, but they would be offended because it's pizza. It's an Italian thing, right? They could look
Sure.
at
In India, corn is supposed to be on pizza. Corn and ketchup.
Right. So I don't know, man. I don't get angry at those people. The people that get angry at those things, I guess they want people to understand the religion more or the culture more.
Right.
And that serves a purpose too. But I'm not going to be the person who takes up that space. That's not my job.
Guessing, okay, wanting people to understand the culture more, because part of the problematic thing that in that video, just sorry to belabor the point, but
Mhm.
like Ganesh was on the statue's on the ground near her feet, and so like we have a whole thing in the culture. It's like you don't step on books, you don't step on
Right.
god icons, you don't put your feet on money or anything because you actually touch the feet of people that are older than you as a form of respect,
Right.
seeking their blessing, right? And so it's like with our gods and whatever, when we worship, we put things at their feet, like the dias or whatever, money. We touch the feet, we pray, right? So there's a whole thing about feet, and right, I guess wanting people to understand the culture more and why it's necessarily problematic to have the imagery of the god icon by your feet. Do you think that there's value in that, or is that an empty cause?
What uh
I
is that?
guess like bringing awareness to like, hey, it's by the feet, and that's culturally insensitive for this reason.
It serves a purpose. I don't
Okay.
think it's I you can just do something as base as be angry about it and want people to be a little more respectful. I think that that's fine. Go for it. However, you want people to really understand the gods of Hinduism. Then you can create something that does that.
Mm.
That's your option too. Like if they made a Remind for Netflix that was Hindu gods, the same way that we revere Greek mythology or Roman mythology or Norse mythology. And it was handled with that level of intricacy,
Right.
then people would see those gods differently.
But even what you're saying now, right, requires a large network to and a large production and authenticity to
Sure.
right to counteract something that's just like a passive decoration in the K-pop video that has an insane global outreach, right? So it's like the people that get angry maybe are those kids in Virginia or the kids in like Queens, or whatever that aren't really empowered, but they have to be vocal for maybe they don't have to be vocal, right? But they're being, maybe it's like a sense of needing to feel some sort of power, or not necessarily needing to feel the power, but as a like, hey, this thing is being curated and presented, but there's more context here, right? So having to take on the responsibility of explaining the context, because or just like letting it fly.
I mean, listen, like I said, they can be that person. That's
Right.
their choice. I mean, I just think that it's like I said before, you're coming from a point of privilege to get a chance to have that opinion and to do those things. Would it be nice if, a K-pop video didn't use a Ganesh G statue on the floor? Yeah, I guess. Sure. Is it necessary? Probably not. But I just don't have. I don't think it's. Man, those who get a chance to be angry about it, that's great. But that's not filling my day.
What about starting the conversation so that it becomes easier, not having to be an implicit ambassador for everything you do in your personal circle? Like, I want to relate an anecdote.
Mhm.
So when I was in law school in Arkansas like a decade ago, and I was in this class. I was the only brown kid, only ethnic of that sort, right? And we had this teacher, and he's great guy, very smart, probably going to be a White House appointee at some point, I'm sure. But he wanted to do like a visual thing, and so he had students come down, and he called me down, and he's like, all right, I need you to step on this law book, right? And I was like, I can't do that. And being in this class of like a bunch of white people. And me, like I'm a class clown. I'm a joker, dog. Like I'm a joker. So like, you know, I feel like I was at a crossroads because if I'm not gonna step on the book because I just can't. I don't step on books. I don't step on money. That's just the thing. I'm not really gonna.
What if it's windy and there's a $20 bill on the floor?
And I step on it.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll
To,
pick it up and touch it to my head.
to stop it from blowing in the wind. Like,
Yeah, sure. I'll step on it, but then I'll pick it up and touch it to my head.
would you step on a book if it's on fire to put it out?
Sure, but then I'd pick it up and touch it to my head.
Okay. All right.
I mean, or if I don't want to if I'm not touching it to my head, I do one of these things. I
Yeah.
touch and touch, because it's like
Mhm.
it's an acknowledgement of, hey, this was there. But like, so that kind of in that story, right? I said no, I
Right.
can't do that for religious reasons, and one of the reasons this professor is great. Mormon dude, dude's a fucking machine, right?
Mhm.
One of the reasons he was great was he didn't press me on that, because any other professor would, because of my Joker reputation, right? He didn't press me. He's like, "Oh, okay, love, I understand." Right? Other people were laughing, and then like for a week, I had to fucking explain myself to classmates. I was like, "No, it's for real a thing. Just Google it. Google Indians and not stepping on books." It's like a whole thing. So it's like having to be like it felt like a crisis of identity, even though it's such a low stakes thing. It was just a class of
Yeah,
40
they
people.
people feel that way when they see that Ganesh statue on the floor,
Right.
where they have to be that person to be that ambassador for somebody to learn something. Now, that can come in varying degrees also. You can do that in a way that doesn't require you to lose your fucking shit.
Yeah.
But that's a personal choice and your own journey you got to be on as to how you handle it. I'm not going to be that kind of guy who's going to be that angry.
What are you trying to narratively frame in general in your career, like approaching topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's the one side of you, obviously the trained joke writer, performer, comedian, like, hey, this is where the funny is in this thing, right? I need to outside of that, what are you trying to like push forward, or what is like your ideological bent on how you approach things, right? Like we established that it's not pushing for the representation thing, or maybe you are thinking about that now, and that's the ideological bent, right? And so it's like everything that I view, every piece of information I consume and process will be processed through this filter of whatever my ideological bent is. That's just a human thing. So it's like for you now in what you're doing, your career, all the experience you've had, being essentially a public speaker and figure, what's the ideological bent?
If you're, so let me just make sure I know what you're asking. Is it, what do I want people to see when they see me?
No, no, I don't think so. No, it's not like a political thing or anything, but it's like when you frame your thoughts, right? Do you come from it? No, no, it's not about how people see you, right?
Okay.
It's about like what are you trying to change, right? Or what other than your Verizon bill, right?
Right.
What do you need the cell phone for? What do you need the house for? Right? So it's like what is the fight? Not necessarily who you're aligning yourself with or
Sure.
what ideology you might be aligning yourself with, but it's like what is the general framing fight for me. I told you it's about the representation thing. That's kind of like the general push forward for everything that I do, and it's like the stink that I put on anything I do.
The way that you see Indian people in the world, and also, and especially in America, I'm trying to forge a coin into a marble.
Mm. Give us complexity.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that on this podcast a lot, actually, too. And like, I think one thought we had like maybe a couple of episodes ago was about how do you feel like to get to complexity, we have to have these tokens? Like we have to, so get to the brown male that can have different emotions that aren't anger or jealousy
Mm-hmm.
or ego, right? To get to the, hyper masculinized brown male or hyper feminine. Well, no, I don't want to, because that's actually not a thing. Indian women are hella fetishized, and that's like very problematic. But whatever. Um, but to get to right the well-rounded marble character, you have to have a bunch of tokens before, like test tokens to forge. Like the guy from Big Bang Theory,
Mm-hmm.
right? He like his portrayal over
Also named
years
Kunal.
also named Kunal. His
Yeah.
portrayal over years, right? This completely emasculated dude literally can't speak a word around women, right? Dude is
They wanted
married,
somebody with an Indian accent,
right?
and they couldn't make an Indian actor do it or get away with it in this era. So instead, they got an actor from India.
Yeah, because
And
it won't be problematic to him.
that's impressive.
And it's like, bro, we will fuck your polished American token. We will go mine something from the source and
Right.
hammer it into a token. But anyways, the dude, right, hyper emasculated in real life, he's married to like Miss Universe or some shit. Right. So it's like him having to go through that kind of thing, right? It's like he's one of our first tokens, right?
One of our first tokens is Cal Penn.
One of our first tokens is Cal Penn. And I
Right.
know we talked about like okay, we're gonna like American Daisy was one of those cross culture whatever things, and I haven't thought about this actually the other day. Like, or well, I didn't have this thought. A friend did, who's gonna be on this podcast. Like I should try to get actors from American Daisy. That would be so cool.
Mhm.
And they're probably just real regular people working in dirking in New York and shit, But like, so you have American Daisy with Cal Penn, right? He plays this well-rounded character. It's not necessarily well-rounded, but he's appropriating AAVE all the time, and that's like his character. But it's like, oh look, there can be this different kind of Indian, right? Then he's got these other different roles, Harold and Kumar, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, who's this cool dude? But he's still got to be super smart because we need the model minority shit, right? And we need that, even though it's a positive stereotype.
Before that, he played a character named Taj Mahal.
I was just about to get to that. We just
And
talked about Ryan Reynolds, about how it's like, would you play the cabbie in Ryan Reynolds? Yo, Cal Penn played a character named Taj Mahal.
And I get it, man. I get it. I'm not mad at him about that. I think about that movie a lot. That movie came out in 2002,
Yeah.
a year after 9/11.
We're talking about Van Wilder.
Yeah. So to come out after 9/11, it's like, do you want the world to see brown people as a threat in the United States? It was like, are they going to see brown people as a threat? And this movie comes out, and now they're going to see brown people as this meek, doesn't know how to get laid character. And if I had a choice, I'm probably going to take the non-threat one.
Right.
Because so after that movie came out, it was like, oh, that's not a good look. But at the same time, it's like, thank you.
Right. I'm sure the only roles he probably would have been able to get were terrorist or, incel.
Right. I think it's you.
But now they're one and the same in 2020.
Right. I keep thinking that when you keep bringing up, we brought up Ryan Reynolds, it's just like, I don't understand why Ryan Reynolds can't make a movie without having a meek Indian character. Like,
Yo, wait. Yo.
It's like, in order for his movies to be wildly successful, he needs a meek Indian character to prop him up further. But you can make a successful Indian movie. You can make a successful movie, period.
Wait, there's Van Wilder. There's Deadpool, where it's like that dude. What? There's What else does he have?
I mean, there's Deadpool 1 and 2.
Deadpool 1 and 2. Dude, he's always. I feel like every white dude at that Charleston rally 4 years ago, where the Tiki Torchers, I feel like every one of those Tiki Torchers thought that they were Ryan Reynolds.
Maybe. I don't think so. I just wish that, like, it either says one thing to me, like, you can make a successful movie without having a meek Indian character, or maybe movies that flop just need a meek Indian character.
But Deadpool did well.
Another meek Indian character.
Right. Oh, movies that flop. What do you mean movies that flop?
Like, for example, if in the movie Cats, they had a meek Indian character that needed to be assisted in getting laid, the movie would have been better. Or what if Justice League was like Batman and Superman's like, we're going to save the world. But Raj, just go talk to that girl.
Oh, we should create a service to be like, we'll post-edit in meek, you play the meek Indian character. I will be a meek Indian character in all your MCU movies.
Right.
So that you can capture 2 other international markets.
Like, if your movie isn't looking good, throw that meek Indian character in there and it's going to be great.
Just make him really weird around women.
That's all it is.
Because we got to call Indian men rapists.
And we could throw them in post if you think about it.
You really could. You just need to have the green screen with the background.
And
you could cut it.
It baffles my mind to see like Ryan Reynolds attached to 3 movies where he has these meek Indian. I'm like, buddy, you can do this without us. Let the training wheels come off. You don't need to take this character and constantly have us in there making you look good.
He tried to bring back Rick Moranis, but then Rick Moranis got beat up on the Upper West Side.
I mean, those are 2 unrelated incidences that are hilarious.
Are they?
I don't know. I'm not.
What if it was a bunch of meek Indians that beat up Rick Moranis?
I'm not gonna.
He's taking our job.
If it was a meek Indian that punched Rick Moranis, I would not stop laughing for a year.
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious.
Right.
No, it wouldn't be. We hope for Rick Moranis' recovery. We really loved Honey, I Blanked the Kids series.
I think about when we were talking about K-pop and the use of Ganeshji in the video. It's every culture has every group of people, and their understanding of another culture is limited. Right. And you can't expect them to have a complete picture. Now, like I said, could you be offended about it? Yeah, great. If that's taking up your bandwidth, so be it. That's just how you live your life. Not going to judge it. But every culture has their, their in a bad light to it, right? Every culture has that. In Korea, it's no different. I remember sitting in auditing a class in college. I was visiting my girlfriend at the time, who's Korean. And I was sitting in this class taught by this professor, and his name was John Palmer. He was from Iowa, I believe, adopted from Korea. And he was talking about, race in America. And, this guy's had quite an interesting life that way, to be raised in Iowa like decades ago. The town was beside itself to see Koreans in it.
Yeah.
They were like, this is crazy. Like, what's happening here? And, like every culture has that kind of view on whether it's white people, black people, Koreans, Indians. We can all have that. Like, I remember one thing he spoke about, and it's still stuck with me till this day, that the same word in Korean for black people is also the same word for dirt, for soil. So, I mean, I think that we have to give some sort of pass in terms of having people get to a place where we can all live in harmony.
Yeah.
If you want people to be on your side, when you open that door and you're faced with each other, the likelihood of them walking into your home, it's going to be if you say something kind. It's not going to be if you're like, what the fuck is going on here? So that's the difference.
Yeah, but also they call it India Gate because that's where we welcome the British.
Yeah, man. I think that living in harmony requires a lot more understanding and not being out.
I think that these conversations are, depending on how you use them and how you process them, are either agents of or detriments to intersectionality, right? Intersectionality, which is going to be the key to everything, right? Like we're seeing it represented in fucking voting, to people from all sorts of different marginalized communities coming together to vote in unison. It's like, oh, look, it has an effect, right? So intersectionality in like culture and thoughts and thought leaders pushing that stuff is gonna come from having these conversations, and then the fight or flight response to the epiphany or realization that is being pushed by each one of these uncomfortable topics. You don't necessarily have to become the dude that holds the mantle for whatever your belief is and puts yourself out there, but you do need to do the internal work and form your own opinions, whether or not you flaunt those opinions.
And if somebody's going to provide that kind of insight into your life for you to have that, that inner conversation.
Yeah.
I think we would prefer if they did that in a gentler way. Like, I don't want to be yelled at for me to check my privilege or for me to, why don't you know this shit? And it's just like, because I don't. Because I'm a human being and I've got enough shit on my plate. And if I offended you, obviously that's not my intention. Because I don't walk around trying to piss people off all day long.
Right.
Man, I got better things to do with my fucking time.
Exactly. And I mean, really, we all just want to be coddled. That's why our favorite position is the fetal one.
Oh, I don't know if you're speaking for both of us.
No, I'm speaking for humanity.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. All right, fine. I can get behind.
No.
And the thing is, in terms of like people being like, oh, they're disrespecting a culture when one person feels like their culture's been disrespected. And you talked about tokenism. when you get tokenized.
Oh, wait. We didn't do this segment.
Okay.
So we got a segment called
Tokenized or fetishized.
And
Okay.
now I think you're about to get into it anyways, and we've already established what the segment is. So sorry, continue.
Okay. So, well, what is the give the breakdown of the segment? I want to.
Okay, well, the segment is you provide a personal anecdote
Mhm.
of when you're either tokenized or fetishized, if the two are mutually exclusive or not, or once again, if I'm creating a false dichotomy, you know, or and like one thing I notice a lot with these segments and just in general conversations is when we're in our 30s and stuff like that, we realize back to different experiences we had as kids or teens, and it's like, oh shit, that was racist. Whoa. Oh damn, I was tokenized like crazy there.
Sure.
Huh. Every single thing that Brian said was some racist shit. Like,
I don't. Your upbringing and a lot of other Indians in America is not is. There's a similarity, but there's also a. It's almost like you got a lot of Indians in America raised outside of, I would say, the tri-state or a major metropolitan area. It's like a cactus in a desert.
mm,
There's just a few of you, and there's just so much desert, so much
yeah,
whiteness. But when you're Indian living in Queens, that's an oasis.
yeah,
So there is that. There's so many Indians. There's so many of other things too. So many different cultures together. And I'm not saying we live in harmony, but there isn't that oppression. I was just talking about that with my friend. I was like, we didn't have that oppression growing up. That whiteness of oppression bearing down on
true.
us.
Yeah, no, we talked. You grew up in abundance of representation. Now, I think though, maybe the difference or the nuance that you can speak on is like, so I feel like growing up in scarcity, yes, you definitely develop different opinions and all. But now navigating your professional life, I'm sure there have been times where you're tokenized or fetishized.
Oh,
And
absolutely. In my personal life too. And I think that if you are tokenized and you're upset about that, I don't think that I agree with that because there's probably been times where you've been fetishized a fetish to somebody and you've benefited off it. When you're a
yeah,
token, somebody else is benefiting off you. When you're a fetish, you also have the ability to benefit.
you have the ability, but what about you have to know that you're a fetish and then you have to, but like,
That's what I mean by you have the ability. If you are a fetish, there is you can also benefit from being a fetish. Whereas
but,
when you're a token, you're probably not going to benefit off it.
but how you benefit from being a fetish?
Well, for example, when I was in my early 20s,
Yeah,
I was I met this girl online.
yeah.
We met up, and she was incredibly attractive, and she had a thing for brown guys. So, needless to say, it was a good night.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't. It didn't take much on my end. I realized I was like, what kind of you guys are she's into? And she's like, guys that just sort of look like you. And it became clear what she was saying, and I knew that.
Right, but your benefit, okay, your benefit is sexual,
Right.
but now thinking back, right, is that sure, it's a benefit,
You think I'm
but
never gonna look at some girl wanting to hook up with me because I'm Indian and go, oh my god, I was disrespected.
right. So
Love,
as long as you're okay with
was
not like
sucking
getting
my dick.
feelings,
Like, how is that disrespectful?
sure, but right. But like let's say you're an emotional but you're a comedian. I understand you're not like emotions are different. Like let's say you're an emotional person, right? In those kind of situations,
Those
do you
aren't
think?
mutually
Did you?
exclusive. You
No,
can
no, I know,
be
I know. I'm totally framing that like a dick. Um,
right.
but let's say, okay, you're in that kind of situation, and you're a fetish. Sure,
Hmm.
you have sex because you rarely have sex, whatever, not you, but that's a benefit you can obtain from it, or you view it as a benefit. Then do you not feel like you'd be like kind of used, or like do you think there'd be an emotional component, or like do you think it could feed into personal insecurities, like not feeling good enough, in that, hey, well, this only happened for me because I'm a fetish, as opposed to I'm Kunal and I'm cool enough for, like, um is there that thought in there, or is it like the benefit itself outweighs any of those kind of things coming up?
I mean, I didn't walk in there and be like, "I'm Indian, let's hook up."
No, 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 no. But I mean, sure, you realize what it was. I mean, it
Right,
is what it is, right?
right. I don't look at it where, oh, she only wanted to hook up with me because I'm Indian. I look at it, there is a personal component to it. I'm
Okay.
clearly I was clearly charming enough, clearly fun enough where that's the case. Did it give me a leg up because I was brown? Yes, it did. But now that gave me a leg up, and that's something I benefited off. Now, what about instances where I don't benefit? Now I'm just the token.
Right.
So you can't
But
be
I'm
one
saying,
day,
is
you
there a
can't be
detriment?
mad at being the token if before you've been the fetish.
Okay, but is there not a similar negative value in being both the token and the fetish, or a negative value in the same vein, like in feeding your like okay, we talk about South Asian men and how we have a penchant for genuflecting, you
Mhm.
know we love to fucking defer our space to someone who seems more confident, that's a lighter skin, because colorism is deeply embedded in us, and all sorts of that shit, right? So something like that, where you're a fetish and you're being used for things essentially you can't control. You can't control what your skin looks like. You can't control these things, right? For But being valued for those things as opposed to the things you can control, your disposition, your perception, blah blah blah.
Right.
Does that not feed into our generalized insecurities about, that cause us to defer our space and be genuflecting, and like, so that kind of thing in itself, is it not like a what do you call it, self-fulfilling prophecy, or like a negative feedback loop?
It can if you allow it to, or if you put it, you could be, it can if you want it to. It doesn't have to. That's
Okay.
up to you, really, how you decide to move forward from there. This girl wanted to hook up with me because I think she clearly had a fetish for brown guys. So be it. We both had fun. We both enjoyed our time. I'll be brief. It is what it is. I don't look at it like, oh, now I defer to white people to take the lead on things,
No.
or to have the word on stuff. There have been times where I've been tokenized, and I'm the Indian on the lineup. It's very difficult to see.
Hey, well, we are not the same person. I want to make sure. See these two boxes and I see
Right.
both our faces. We are not the same person. All
I
right, we
just
tell you about Indian comedy shows.
You're right. I don't think that it kind of sucks that I can't see other Indian comics on the same show because we're never going to be on the same show.
Right.
I have to. You'll never see a lineup, just a straight up lineup, where somehow Akash Singh, comic, very funny, and me. You'll never see us on the same lineup.
Right. Unless the show is called Curry in a Hurry Comedy Exclusive
Exactly.
Darjeeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I know he's on the show and I go to see him.
Yeah. And you draw. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, you're gonna be there tonight at this club? I'll meet you there. We'll hang. Like, it's never gonna be the case where two Indian people are thrown up on the lineup. We're
Yeah.
tokens all the time. And there's been instances, and I've seen this recently, and I never really noticed it before. but I've had to cancel a couple shows. Things come up, so be it. And it's rare. Like, I think I've only canceled maybe 3 shows in 11 years. And the 2 times I canceled it, I ended up seeing another Indian person in my place thrown up on the lineup. And
That's ooh. Is it
And
comedy similar though? No, it's not.
I mean, no,
it's not. It's not. I can say objectively it's not.
Right. So it's not, and I'm not mad at it, man.
Right.
I get it. At least they're pushing for some diversity, right? And now my value is apparently off my skin color, and that does suck to a
the
degree.
conversation I was trying to get to with the hooking up with that girl in your 20s, it's not about the sex. It's about the merit, about the comedy stuff. That's what this is the conversation. So it's central drive, comedy, comedian, being in your craft and being this guy. And now when you're tokenized, this is how you feel. What the thing that feeds into the insecurities that we all share.
Yeah, I start to have that kind of insecurity where it's like, oh, you want another, you're filling a spot here, and you said, all right, we're gonna have someone diverse, someone who's not a straight white male. And I can feel, I understand that. I get it. On the one hand, I am happy that at least they're thinking about it. It's not a show of 7 white dudes, and that's the entire show.
Yeah, but they're all different in their own way.
But to be honest, man, it can be. Not to say that it can't. It can. It's rarely the case. Like, I don't think you can put. But you could also say the same thing about Indian male comics, right?
That's what the point I'm trying to make, right? You can line up a 7 Indian male comics. You can have, the perspectives you're gonna get aren't not always gonna be about Indian shit, and it's gonna be a whole spectrum of shit. Just like if you had 7 white comics on a lineup, it'd be a whole spectrum of shit, right?
Right. So
but
that becomes like a thing, right? So I don't get offended by that kind of shit. I'm not gonna be the kind of person who's gonna be like, oh, they wanted more diversity on they're using me for their diversity. It's like, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They want you to speak on they not speak on things, but they want you to provide that perspective. So they're giving me an opportunity to provide, to shape the coin into a marble. And so then I got to decide, do I get upset at the fact that they want an Indian on the show? Or do I look at it like I can flatten the coin into a marble?
Is there a part of you now?
I'd rather shape the marble.
Right. Is there a part of you now, because we talked about this at the beginning of this, is there a part of you now that's thinking like, yo, this token stuff getting replaced by another brown guy, blah blah blah, that stuff is really kind of shitty. So like these younger people coming up through this comedy industry or whatever, right? What part of you feels so much like you're competing with them versus like, hey, this kind of shit's gonna happen to you, and like this might be how you feel. I felt this way, like providing technical information so that they can grow and have those epiphanies and whatever.
You can be frustrated at that, where you see that they're putting an Indian guy on the show and it's meant for diversity. But then you got to ask yourself, like, all right, man, then just don't take the spot. Then don't provide that insight if you feel so upset by these things. Or you can look at it like, well, I'm given this opportunity. And I'm not saying people think about that, okay? Some people are just going, let's just have a unique lineup. And their intention is not to be diverse, because you can be diverse in a way that's almost malicious, right? You can say, oh, we gotta, yeah, let's have a diverse show because God forbid we have fucking 5 white guys on there. You know what I mean? Like they could put it that way, and they're annoyed they got to do it. But then there's people who just want to provide a different perspective, different voices. And are you going to get upset at that? I'm not. I'm going to look at it like, all right, cool. So you want to do that? Great. I mean, they do that. How many shows? They'll only have one woman on it.
Yeah.
And for them to have 2 is like mind-boggling. Mind-boggling to have 2.
Right.
So, but those that do, are you going to be mad at them for pushing diversity?
No, I mean, having more women on the show usually makes the show better. Because, like, I mean, there's also like,
I mean, that's
I don't know if a lot of well, make sure, but like, I also feel like there's also like women in the audience at these shows, and they
right,
comedy they can relate to.
right,
You
and
know?
I think that's where funny becomes the big difference. Now, in
Yeah.
a show where I'm replaced with somebody who is also brown, man, so what? What does that mean? I'm supposed to
Sure.
be angry about that? I'm gonna message this person and be like, "How dare you replace somebody with somebody who's brown who I think is not at my level?" What kind of asshole would I be if I was like that?
No, and
Yeah.
that's not no. I think you take the positive silver lining that, like, hey, some South Asian people in the audience can see a different shade of representation that they get to go home with and be like, hey, I saw that. Even if it's not you, it's someone else like Danish, who we had last episode. Like, oh, hey, look, I'm seeing this
Some
marble.
people look at that statue of Ganeshti on the floor and go, "Hey, cool, that's pretty awesome."
Yeah, oh, that looks dope. I want to get that. Somebody tell Travis Scott to get that in his videos. But like, yeah, like, sure, yeah. And I mean, the iconography is dope, man. We're fucking titans of culture and shit.
And what's the major overall difference between all those things? What's the thing that causes you to look at it that way? And I think all of that really ties back down to what we were talking about, and that's growth.
Growth. Growth, and not stifling other people's growth. I think you unlock the most growth in yourself by empowering other people to grow, because in turn that fuels your own growth.
And giving them the space to do it.
Right. And that is literally called karma.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to, before we close out, I want to talk about your new show. And I don't really ever talk about people's shows on this podcast, but like, so I really like your new show because I watched it. You started it on like Instagram Live, and it was just like, I just saw that your thing was up on live, and I watched it, and it was really engaging. It's called Home Invaders, and you don't do it on Instagram Live anymore. Now you're getting into like YouTube. I saw it on Facebook. You're producing these episodes of it, or you're getting into it. We're just in its infancy. It's called Home Invaders. Can you explain it?
First of all, thank you so much for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in, which is great.
No, it's great. I love it. And I want everyone here to watch it after you hear Kunal talk about it.
Sure. So basically, I put out clips of my stand up, and it's like, all right, cool. Still doing that. And I wanted, we're all at home more often these days. And I wanted something different, something fun that people could watch,
right,
where it also included, when you work in comedy, you know a ton of funny people and you have great interactions with them. And I wanted to capture that too. So Home Invaders is a short game show that takes place, it's like 15 to 20 minutes. And I usually have podcasters. So most podcasts are 2 people.
Right.
So these people know each other. They know each other well. They have a good relationship. I make them compete against each other in a trivia, home trivia, and also trivia based on their podcast.
Yeah.
A little mix, and it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So they have to answer 6 questions, And the in between, after they both answer the questions, there's a lot of smack talking, there's a lot of ribbing, there's a lot of jabs that are thrown at each other. Obviously, all playful, all fun, and it's, to me, I think it's better because it's fun to see that. I mean, it's not mean when it's like somebody who you see weekly.
No.
You know?
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing that we talk about too a lot. With how virtual everything's getting, right? Text messages, right? Text messages, all the stuff, people not having face-to-face confrontations, people getting hella anxious about making regular ass phone calls, right?
Mhm.
With all of that happening, what is the thing that we're gonna push up and consume the most of, right? We're gonna consume virtual hangouts. And what are virtual hangouts other than people who have carefully, not necessarily carefully articulated, but authentic rapport, and so like authentic rapport is the new performance.
Right.
So that's a thing that I think you're really capitalizing on with this show.
Right. Is having people that have that authentic rapport. And now I kind of feel like I'm sort of jumping in on it too, right? Because I'm not a co-host of their podcast,
No,
but it's fun too to be in that sort of space.
but these are people you've known for years, generally, also. So it's like them, and you're comfortable enough to like. Okay, this is funny because like the first episode, it's not the first episode you have, but I think it's the first episode with like you renovated your format. But,
right, thanks to you, I renovated my format. Let me just give you proper credit. You said check out StreamYard. I was like, at first I was like, all right. I feel like an old guy looking at a VCR, and I'm like, man, I'm not gonna fucking figure this shit out. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, this shit's very simple. Yo, he's very much correct on this. So thank you so much.
But anyways, I bring that up to bring up like this hilarious joke. You had the Mango Bay guys, it was Usama Siddiqui and Pranav Bahari, and they host a podcast called Mango Bay. I'm gonna get them on here at some point, but you kept, because they talk about Ronnie Chang in their podcast. Right. You had so many questions about Ronnie Chang.
I figured
that's the funniest shit ever.
You know, the thing is, what I really enjoyed is like they mentioned Ronnie. They're like, I asked, what episode should I listen to? I really want to, I want to know what you guys are about. Really encapsulate that. They have this episode. They're like, listen to this one. They talk a lot about Ronnie Chang in such high praise.
Was he the guest?
No, he wasn't on the podcast. He was just a guy that they like, who listens to their podcast, who they like him too. And it's a great, like, nice situation they got. And so I was like, all right, these guys like Ronnie Chang. Let's see how much they know about Ronnie Chang. So I just threw in a couple questions about Ronnie Chang, which Usama didn't get correctly.
No.
And he was, I think Pranav accused me of making up a city in Malaysia. And Pranav got that answer. He got the answer correct about Ronnie Chang's late night debut. And it was just, that's what I'm saying, man. It's that good fun. It's that good out that I'm trying to encapsulate. No, and then the second part is a scavenger hunt where each person is filming it selfie style. And I give them 60 seconds on the clock, and they have to find 8 objects, and they're running around the house looking for it. So
it's like almost impossible.
Has anyone ever gotten all
8? 8 in 1 minute?
Yeah, that's very.
That sounds impossible, but no, I mean that's a challenge.
That's the point, right?
That's like American Ninja Warrior, but quarantine edition.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, since we're all in our homes anyway, and it's just fun to see people flip out about these types of things. Like Usama said, toilet paper. And he runs and he's like, shit, my roommate's in the bathroom. And then he's like, wait. And then it clicks in his head. He's like, what? We have spare toilet paper here. And then he runs and he finds it out of a closet somewhere. He's like, toilet paper, done. And then, we go to the next thing. And he's just, and I don't put objects that I know are going to be near each other. Like, you'll never see me go fork, spoon, but instead it's like fork, pillow, because there's no reason for them to be near each other.
Unless you're in a
studio
basement, studio basement,
or you're filthy
with a kitchenette,
yeah. So it makes it a fun, it's a fun hang, and I think because I'm coming from the perspective of who's not on their podcast, who's like an outsider, other people that watch it are also like, oh, cool. Like, I'm
Yeah.
bringing you into this because I'm also into this. And then the guests don't feel uncomfortable because they always have their buddy with them.
Right. And I
Mm.
mean, going back to the marble stuff, it as brands and as hosts and whatever, it rounds them out more.
Right.
People have access to different sides. That's why like things like hot wings or whatever, the hot ones,
Hot ones. Yeah.
yeah, like things like that, people like to see people in different elements, which is why I think you're really I don't want to I hate saying the word capitalizing on something, but you are hitting something that has a lot of teeth. And I know you've had your whatever dealings with networks and whatever, and who knows how to get anything off. But the fact that it's like, yo, you can literally, you're just self-producing this little thing from your, not little thing, you're self-producing this thing from your computer and with your friends in your network, and who knows who's looking at it or whatever. But it's fun. It's
Right.
fun. It's really engaging, and it's really like kind of frantic. Like when I was watching the live, I watched one of the live episodes you had with the ladies from the Most Expensive Joke,
Amy
Amy
Shanker and
Shanker
Dee Guerreros. Yeah.
and Digger, and like when you were doing the scavenger part, they were freaking out, and it
Yeah.
was hilarious.
Yeah. And you know what's fun is you get to see, like, when anyone's on their podcast, their own podcast with their co host, there's no edge of competition. There's no situation where they're going to sit here and compete in this kind of environment. And that's what's interesting, right? Because D is super competitive. And I didn't know this, but she's like running around the house, just getting these objects, like flip them out. She's like, and then like, I think she was like a few seconds short and she's like, I got that in on time. And I was like, wait, calm down. You won already. You're fine. So, it's like you get to see that kind of aspect, and it's great because I think it really adds an extra dimension to
Bro,
how cool and how fun these people are.
I feel like you're on some new age Merv Griffin, Mark Burnett shit for real.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really
It's
appreciate
like, yeah, because the game show format is great. Obviously, you're gonna up the production and do more formatting and stuff, but it's like that's another cool thing about these quarantine brands is that people get a personal investment with your thing, and then they grow with you because they see all your technical limitations up top.
Right.
And so it's like being confident and speaking on stage is something that draws an audience because they see somebody being confident, right?
Mhm.
And they see somebody wielding that confidence. So in a brand, it's going to draw an audience, or people are going to have a personal investment because they're seeing you overcome technical limitations or come up with creative solutions to
Mhm.
technical limitations because they know you're broke, bro. They know
Right.
I'm broke. Like,
Right. Right.
y'all should know this.
Yeah, like I did the first one using StreamYard, and it was new, it was different, and it
Right.
was challenging. And I'm using this off my laptop, and there are people that have obviously better productions, but I'm gonna go with what I got and use it till. And
Yeah.
the next episode will be on Twitch. So, you
Bro, dude, and I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to get Twitch going, not for this brand, but for a friend that I work with. And well, I mean, I guess I could say I work with Yamanika, and I want to get her Twitch going. We've been talking about it, and maybe by the time this episode comes out, we might have something going. But it's a little bit daunting too, because
right,
like we could do the way where she just like sets up an account and we just stream it off of her like PlayStation or something, but it doesn't provide all the like the gadgets and all of the like you know different instrumentalities that are totally within our grasp. So because we wouldn't be doing like if we don't do those things that are within our grasp, then it's just like, bro, are we even trying?
you don't realize, like, you only when you begin to produce your own thing do you realize how many of those extra hands were necessary.
Yeah.
Like that person, the person doing the sound, the lighting, the camera operator. There's so many hands involved in something, and then you go, and when you're doing it all by yourself, you're like, holy shit! I guess the justification for those 30 extra heads on the set were necessary.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I do everything.
This feels like a messaging for not pirating shit.
Well, you shouldn't pirate shit unless it's like a big studio
Oh, okay.
that got their money from the Holocaust. You didn't let
Okay,
me finish the thought. You didn't let me finish the
that's
thought.
fair.
Yeah.
You
So
know, a little. Most people who've made it this far will be happy to know that the Zack Snyder remake of Justice League has an Indian character who's Meek in it.
yo, they better. I know Kunal, not Kunal, Kumail got
Yeah,
fucking jacked, but yo, please don't make him like a real. Don't make him like the guy from Big Bang Theory, even though he's jacked and a superhero in whatever this movie that comes out.
I mean, you know, I hope so. I hope he's like, you know, I hope he's just like. But there's a
Dude, I
lot,
hope they make him like James Bond or whatever. It's like, yo, this dude's calling shots. It's like this. That
right?
would be the thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool to watch. It'd be fun to watch. You know, when you didn't like growing up, since I didn't see a lot of that on TV. I would find it in different ways. Like I remember watching the Margaret Cho show
Yeah.
and feeling representation there.
Yeah.
I remember, and I was like, "This is so cool." You know, granted, she's a Korean woman. I was
Yeah.
like, but I was ecstatic about it. So
No, I mean that's the whole thing, and like I guess we can leave on this thought is that we do get our forms of representation through intersectionality, right? So it's like I see Asian representation on screen. That's a win for me because
right,
then, yeah, the needle is being pushed forward. And not only that, I know that in the marketplace of ideas, nuance that I know that wasn't ever represented around me growing up is starting to come into the mainframe. And I am like, that is exciting.
right.
I mean, that's dope. And that's a big thing about this show. Yeah, okay, the egotistical stuff aside. But like, is that like you know, yo, this is here where we want to push the needle forward on these conversations. Everything doesn't have to be framed the way it does, you know?
Mhm.
And so like this long form thing, whatever, if you're watching up to this point, thank you so much. Like this is a lot. I know this is a lot. But you know, this is existing now. And we have this long form conversation. You can always look back on this. We can look back on this in years and see where we're at headwise, you know, as like in the beginning when I was talking about as a moment of nostalgia, right? Whatever
Right.
you want to think about in this time frame, you know, this is one physical thing that you have that you can look back on as a moment in time, or you can also start coding in different smells and sounds and tastes to now, so that later on when those things come back up, you'll remember this time. And if that's like a message to your future self, to like, hey, you know, remember the epiphany I had here.
Now I wonder if I said anything wrong.
You might have shit. I'm sure I might have. But I mean, no, no, I don't. Maybe. I don't know.
Listen,
Thanks.
worst comes to worst, you get a cease and desist letter, huh? Let's just call it that.
Yeah, let's just call it that, and let's say no. Yeah, thanks for watching.